I invite you to stand as we receive His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic. Thank you very much. Please be seated. His Excellency, Dr. Philip Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Justice Blaise Hikaya, Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Ministers present, Honorable Judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Permanent Secretaries present, Dr. Deo John Nangela, Judge of the High Court of Tanzania, representing Honorable Professor Ibrahim Juma, Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Judges of the Judiciary of Tanzania, Honorable Chief Justices and Presidents of Constitutional Courts of Member States of the African Union, Honorable Regional Commissioner of Dar es Salaam, Honorable Commissioner General of Immigration, representatives of member states, the academia, the civil society, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all other protocols duly observed. My name is Dr. Robert Wunde Eno, Registrar of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and I warmly welcome you to this occasion, the opening ceremony of the 5th African Union Judicial Dialogue. The opening ceremony will be marked by 3 speeches, one from the President of the Court, one from the Chief Justice of Tanzania, and an official opening by the guest of honor, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Before that, however, it is my honor and privilege to invite you to stand so that we can listen to the national anthem of Tanzania, which will be immediately followed by the national anthem of the African Union. And we are graced this morning to have the brass band, the national brass band of Tanzania, to play this for us. I therefore invite you to stand for the national anthems. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Excellencies, distinguished participants, this opening ceremony will be moderated by Honorable Justice Bless Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, to whom I humbly hand over the mic. Thank you, Honorable Vice President.
Merci bien,
Thank you.
Dr Reynaud, greffier de la Cour. C'est un honneur pour nous d'avoir le vice-président de la République unie de Tanzanie et en mon nom propre et au nom de la présidente de la Cour, la juge Imani Aboud, je vais commencer par exprimer l'honneur que nous avons effectivement d'avoir cet accueil. Merci bien de me rappeler le micro. Je disais que c'était un honneur pour nous de recevoir le vice-président de la République unie de Tanzanie. Mais pour démarrer cette matinée, je vais donner la parole immédiatement à la juge Imani Aboud, présidente de la Cour africaine, pour son allocution de bienvenue. Madame la Présidente, vous avez la parole.
Good morning. His Excellency, Dr. Philip Isdori Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Justice Dr. Deo John Nangela, on behalf of Honorable Professor Ibrahim Juma, Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Justice Blaise Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Judges of the African Court, Honorable colleagues, Judges of international, regional, and national courts, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to first extend to you a warm welcome to Dar es Salaam, otherwise known as the Heaven of Peace. I would like in particular to express my gratitude and that of the court to Her Excellency, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for designating His Excellency, Dr. Philip Mpango, Vice President of the Republic, to launch this important event. On behalf of the African courts and my own behalf, I extend appreciations to the government of the United Republic of Tanzania for the continued support afforded to the African courts as our host country. Your Excellency, we thank you for continuing to be the capital city of international human rights justice in Africa. I'm also appreciative of the time taken that my colleague, Honorable Dr. Deo John Nangela, representing Professor Ibrahim Juma, the Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania, to be part of this event of today's opening ceremony. We congratulate the Chief Justice of Tanzania on the good work being done to continue guiding the judiciary of Tanzania towards the fulfillment of its mission in a manner that is consonant with Tanzanians' commitment under the African Charter and other applicable international human rights norms. Your Excellencies and distinguished participants, the fifth judicial dialogue held by the African Court under the aegis of the African Union has elected to debate the recurring question of the independence of the judiciary. Without wanting to dwell much into the substance of issue, I would like to make a few observations on the context in which judicial independence is currently debated, not only by academics, but also by courts, whether national or international. A first observation worth being made is that judicial independence is so intimately connected to social behavior that it cannot possibly be assessed and debated away from non-legal parameters such as sociological, psychology, and even religion. While these parameters belong more to the personal and individual sphere, one should not lose sight of the fact, even acting under the gaze of the institutional body of a bench, courts of law, are only the result of merging individual and personal agents influenced by the same parameters. A second observation I would like to make is that in the justice system, supervised by the African Charter and the African Court, there is a legal wealth that interpretation can tap into. The legal sphere in Africa is indeed characterized by diversity. Member states of the African Union implement different legal systems, different structures and organization of the judiciary, and different oversight scheme when it comes to supervising the operation of the judiciary. When adjudicating judicial independence, contextualization demands that this mass of factors be kept in mind to avoid an out-of-context judicial lawmaking. My third observation relates to judicial dialogue as a standalone dynamic. As this fifth judicial dialogue discusses questions of efficiency and effectiveness of the judiciary, there's no better time to recall that the principles of complementarity and subsidiarity apply to any debate on judicial effectiveness. As some of you might be aware, the bulk of the cases that make their way to the African court arise from related to proceedings in domestic courts. So in a sense, adjudication activity in regional judicial bodies, including the African Court, revolves around the assessment of effectiveness and efficiency of the national judicial systems. In discussing this topic, I therefore invite you to bear in mind that judicial dialogue will only make sense if national judiciaries are rendered more effective to make complementarity of justice more pertinent to the protection of human rights in Africa. Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and participants, let me wrap up my remarks by welcoming you all again on behalf of the African Court. I congratulate staff of the court's registry for effort put into the organization of this event, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much, the guests of honor, and thank you for your kind attention.
Merci, Présidente. Nous allons à présent donner la parole à M. Amos Makala, commissaire national ici en Tanzanie, et pour son allocution liminaire, M. Amos Makala, vous avez la parole.
Mheshimiwa Asante. Mheshimiwa Makamu wa Rais, majaji wote walioko hapa wa Tanzania na wa Afrika, niwakaribishe wote katika mkoa wa Dar es Salaam. Sisi tumepata heshima kubwa ya kuwa na mkutano huu mkubwa kufanyika katika jiji la Dar es Salaam, na mimi nikiwa mkuu wa mkoa nimefurahi kwamba mnafanya mkutano katika nchi ya Tanzania na katika mkoa wa Dar es Salaam ulio salama na tulivu, na mkutano wenu ukiendelea. Lakini kikubwa, uwepo wenu kwetu sisi ni fursa ya mambo mbalimbali, lakini kikubwa haya mnaoyaongelea hapa na Tanzania ikiwa mwanachama. Niwahakikishie kwamba tutafanya mkutano wenu katika hali ya salama, na yale mazuri ambayo mmeyapata kwetu, basi tunawashukuru, na yale mapungufu madogo madogo nao tunapokea kwa ajili ya kuyafanyia kazi. Baada ya kusema hayo, niwashukuru sana na karibuni sana, na bahati mbaya mimi Kifaransa sijui. Asanteni.
Merci commissaire Makala. Nous aurions voulu une traduction du texte pour la plupart d'entre nous dans la salle. Mon micro ne s'entend pas. Nous aurions voulu une traduction du texte pour la plupart d'entre nous dans la salle qui ne sont pas au fait de la langue kiswahili. Nous souhaiterions avoir Emmanuel. Emmanuel, si on peut avoir un court extrait du discours de M. Makala Amos. Continue. Qui peut faire la traduction en 2 mots, dire le mot?
Allô? Si vous me permettez, Monsieur le Président, je peux faire une petite traduction de ce qui a été dit par le commissaire.
Merci, monsieur, si vous êtes dans la salle.
Oui, je suis dans la salle.
Vous pouvez faire une traduction brève?
Oui, je suis docteur Amada El Badaï Mohamed Faki.
Merci.
Ambassadeur des Comores, doyen du corps diplomatique en Tanzanie.
Merci bien. Allez-y pour la traduction, s'il vous plaît, rapide.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur le commissaire a souhaité la bienvenue à toutes les délégations ici à Dar es Salaam, capitale de paix, et vous rassure et vous souhaite également de très bon travail et un très bon séjour à Dar es Salaam. Voilà ce que je peux vous dire en résumé. Merci.
Merci bien. Nous allons poursuivre cette cérémonie d'ouverture. Nous allons écouter l'allocution du docteur Deo John Nangela, qui est juge à la Haute Cour de Tanzanie. Monsieur Deo John Nangela, vous avez la parole.
Your Excellency, Honorable Philip Isidore Mpango, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Ladyship, Madam Justice Imani Daud Aboud, the President of the African Court of Human and People's Rights, Your Lordship, Professor Justice Blaise Chikaya, the Vice President of the African Court of Human and People's Rights, Honorable Chief Justices and judges here present, both regional and national judges, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, good morning. It is with a great honor for me to make these opening remarks on behalf of His Lordship, the Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania, Professor Ibrahim Hamis Juma, at this very important gathering of distinguished judicial luminaries, all coming from different corners of the continent, ready to participate in this 5th judicial dialogue. Your Excellency, before I proceed further, allow me to congratulate Her Ladyship, Madam Justice Iman Daud Aboud, and His Lordship, Professor Justice Blaise Chikaya, for their election to serve at the helm of the African Court of Human and People's Rights as President and Vice President, respectively. It is worth noting, Your Excellency, that their election to steer the wheels of the African Court of Human and People's Rights almost coincided with the marking of the 40th anniversary of the adoption of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, a charter which serves as the basis for the African Court of Human and People's Rights. Your Excellency, I find such a coincidence to be of symbolic significance, since it reminds me of the special calling of Moses, the revered servant of God, which calling came at the time when he celebrated his 40th birthday anniversary. It is therefore said, and I hope that is true, that life begins at 40s, and whenever a person assumes a noble task at the time when there is a marking of a 40th anniversary, that timing portends great breakthroughs and landmark achievements on his or her career. I thus firmly believe that during the tenure of Her Ladyship, Madam Justice Aboud, and His Lordship, Mr. Justice Chikaya, we are all going to witness landmark achievements made by the African Court of Human and People's Rights. Your Excellency, such expectations are not a wishful thinking. They are real and not far from what the court has prepared for us in this 5th judicial dialogue under the theme, Building Trust in African Judiciaries. The choice of this theme signifies a far-sighted approach on the part of this court, taken with a view to ensure that African judiciaries remain to be uncontaminated fountains of justice from which our people can freely access their waters to quench their thirst for justice. Your Excellency and distinguished participants, in any state the world over, trust and confidence in the judiciary stands as emblem that expresses a society's respect for justice and the rule of law. A trusted judiciary is always a symbol of sustainable peace, unity, stability, and socio-economic development in any country. That is the reason for my earlier submission that the choice of the theme for this 5th judicial dialogue signifies the deep commitment which the African Court has towards promoting a better future for our people and our economies. Your Excellency and all distinguished participants, peace, stability, unity, and socio-economic development are the jewels which our continent is craving for at the moment. With the ravaging COVID-19 pandemic, our people are in need of the peace of the mind and the assurance from their state-based institutions, including the judiciaries, more than ever before. They want to be confident that when they approach the courts in search for justice over their disputes, they will find the courts well prepared to attend their pleas timely and without COVID-19 shrouded excuses. That means, therefore, that as institutions tasked with the role of dispensing justice, our judiciaries need to be more prepared to discharge their functions, even in such a difficult and uncertain time as the one we are living in today. The topmost preparations, in my view, are those related to enhanced investment and reliance on the use of modern technologies or ICTs in the delivery of judicial services. Your Excellency and distinguished participants, with or without COVID-19 pandemic, investment in the use of ICTs to facilitate effective and efficient justice delivery to our citizens must be seen as a goal that needs to be attained at all costs. This is particularly so because one of the pillars in building trust and confidence in the judiciary is transparency. Essentially, judicial transparency refers not only to public access to courts, but also a proactive engagement with the citizenry through the citizen-centered judicial service model. That kind of justice delivery model not only contributes towards enhancing rule of law, but also strengthens the authority of the judiciary and lightens the minds of the public, as it helps to proactively communicate information to them about the core values and the inner workings of the judiciary, which may not be known to many, thus helping to bridge the gap which hitherto existed between our judicial institutions and the rest of the society, and in turn, the net effect is deepening of the public trust in the judicial system. Your Excellency and all distinguished participants, since the year 2007 onwards, our Tanzanian judiciary saw the need to embrace and harness the benefits of ICTs in the delivery of judicial services and has made this to be a matter of priority. The year 2007 was a landmark year which saw increased efforts to embrace change, particularly when the Tanzanian judiciary convened a conference in Arusha under the theme, Role of ICT in the Administration of Commercial Justice. The 2007 Arusha conference ended up with a resolve to engage a consultant to prepare an ICT roadmap for the judiciary of Tanzania. And the same was readily adopted and implemented without any further delays. With the roadmap at hand as a guide, the Tanzanian judiciary and the government at large embarked on legal sector reforms and modernization programs, which involved acquisition of ICT-related equipment and trainings to impart necessary knowledge and skills on ICT use in the judicial personnel, to its judicial personnel. The modernization phase helped to make the judiciary a bastion for building sustainable peace, stability, and unity, all of which helps to create an environment conducive for trade, business, and investment. These factors, among others, have continued to make Tanzania an attractive investment destination to date. Your Excellency, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the span of time from the year 2007 to 2021 is almost a decade and a half years. The roadmap adopted in 2007 further propelled a new approach of developing 5-year judiciary strategic plans with measurable goals and outputs, an approach which has greatly facilitated the deepening of public trust in the judiciary. For instance, the judiciary's 2015-2020 strategic plan was aligned with the country's development vision 2025 and sought to address, among others, the challenges facing access to justice and administration of justice in Tanzania. This strategic plan helped the judiciary to plan, design, and implement short, medium, and long-term strategies to deliver citizen-centric judicial services. And to add, promoting trust was one of its key pillars. I am pleased, Your Excellency, to inform this gathering that the 2015-2020 strategic plan ended with a bonus as the 5th phase government under the leadership of the dear son of Africa, His Excellency, the late Dr. John Joseph Pombe Magufuli, may his soul rest in eternal peace, ably pushed this country to a lower middle income status economy ahead of time. Your Excellency, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the Tanzanian judiciary and indeed the government of Tanzania as a whole is not in a relaxed mood because of attaining the middle income status. Instead, the judiciary is striving under its 2020-2025 5-year strategic plan to build on the gains so far attained under the previous strategic plan, with a view to further deepen within this 5 years lifespan the citizen-centric judicial service model it has adopted. In so doing, the judiciary has continued to spearhead the use of ICTs in the delivery of justice at all spheres, taking into account or into consideration the challenges we have all experienced as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19. The use of e-case management systems, online filing of cases, hearing of cases by way of virtual courts, video conference and audio-visual recording facilities, the use of mobile courts, the use of SMS services, and the recently integrated judicial service model, where all judiciary-related services from the primary to the Court of Appeal are readily available, are all achievements which we can be proud of. Your Excellency, ladies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to hold back my horses, lest I unleash too much of what should have been unleashed and preempt the constructive dialogue which is eagerly being awaited by these precious and noble people who have traveled miles and miles to climb the top of Africa, which, by the way, is in Tanzania, and it is well known by the name Mount Kilimanjaro, and from that rooftop to declare, as they also spread the wonderful fragrance of the islands of Zanzibar to all 4 corners of the continent and to the rest of the world, that the African judiciary is intently committed to build itself as a trustworthy and unshakable institution, a bastion of hope for all people thirsty of effective, efficient, and transparent delivery of judicial services. Thank you very much as we continue to ensure that justice in the African institutions runs down like a river, and the righteousness of those who man these institutions like a mighty stream. Thank you once again for listening to me.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ibrahim Ajouma. Messieurs et dames, cette cérémonie se déroule sous le haut patronage du vice-président de la République unie de Tanzanie, Mr. Vice President, Honorable Dr. Philip Pango, allow me, by behalf of the President of the Court, African Court, to give you a floor. Please.
Honorable Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Dr. Deo Nangela, representing the Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania. I recognize Hamis Shaban, the Acting Chief Justice of Zanzibar, Honorable Amos Makala, the Regional Commissioner of Dar es Salaam, Honorable Justice Blaise Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, Professor Elisante Ole Gabriel, the Chief Court Administrator, the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Gift Kweka, the Director of Coordination and Legal Services, representing the Attorney General of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable retired justices and judges, I recognize the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Ambassador of the Comoros, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Honorable Justices and Judges from international and national courts, representatives of international and civil society organizations, permanent secretaries, senior government officials, all distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great joy and honor that I welcome you all to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and in particular to the 5th African Union Judicial Dialogue. I understand that some of you had to travel long distances to be here today. Your presence is a clear testimony to the importance attached to the 5th dialogue, given the difficulties of traveling these days due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is my sincere hope that you will find Dar es Salaam very comfortable. Karibuni sana. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go on further, allow me to convey to you a heartfelt welcome from Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, who wished personally to address this August Assembly, but due to international exigencies, she could not be here. Considering the importance of this dialogue, she asked me to stand in for her to make opening remarks and wish you a very successful 5th African Union Judicial Dialogue. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I feel greatly honored and privileged to officiate the opening of this dialogue and specifically to share a few thoughts on the theme of the dialogue, that is building trust in African judiciaries. And I propose to do so drawing on some anecdotes from my own country, Tanzania. However, let me confess that I have a feeling of both respect and a little fear of knowing that I'm addressing a gathering of learned brothers and sisters, a gathering of eminent lawyers, judges, people who are trained practitioners of adjudicating almost about everything and from all walks of life. People who spend their labor time arguing. My slight fear emanates from the fact that I am an economist, and I'm sure most people in this room are familiar with Winston Churchill's joke that if you put two economists in a room, you get two opinions, unless one of them is a Lord Keynes, in which case you get three opinions. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that African judiciaries are creatures of constitutions of their respective countries, while regional courts such as the African Court of Human and People's Rights are established by treaties or protocols. It is clear that the mandates of these judiciaries are stipulated in the establishing legal instruments. The modus operandi of courts are defined in the relevant statutes, customs, and conventions. Nothing is left to chance, and therefore, one would expect the courts to act in accordance with their mandated jurisdictions, applying relevant laws to the established facts and evidence adduced during the process of adjudication. In this regard, people should be able to legitimately predict the outcome of their cases, particularly when the law and the facts are clear, and the evidence is watertight. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, the choice of the theme of this dialogue is in itself an honest admission of the limited trust or confidence that our people have in African judiciaries. And therefore, in order to earn their trust, we have to know and work hard to find a cure to what are the strongest factors and concerns that diminish trust in African judiciaries. As I travel around the country, I have encountered a general public outcry regarding shocking and sometimes unpleasant experiences with the courts, such as cases being adjourned many times or left pending for years, in which case the legal maxim which says justice delayed is justice denied remain a cry in the wilderness. I also encountered complaints about unbearable costs of litigation, cumbersome court procedures, court summons and judgments written in foreign languages, discrimination against women, people with disability, and the poor, delayed execution of valid court orders, and people losing cases simply for lack of legal know-how or filing a case even when it is clear that they have a genuine claim. Surely, victims of such malpractices will have little trust in the judiciary and allied institutions. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to emphasize three key areas of focus in building trust in our judiciaries. One relates to ensuring independence and the impartiality of the judiciary. The independence and impartiality of the judiciary is paramount in the quest to build trust in African judiciaries. The Constitution of the United Republic of Tanzania, for instance, provides for the separation of powers between the executive, parliament, and the judiciary. It empowers the president to appoint judges, but once the appointment is done, the president's hands are tied, even when it becomes common knowledge that a particular judge is underserving the sacred office. This is intended to ensure the independence and the impartiality of the judiciary from the executive arm. I call upon the participants in this dialogue to discuss this aspect and come up with recommendations to further enhance the independence and the impartiality of the judiciaries without jeopardizing the delivery of justice. For our people to have confidence in the judiciary, justice must not only be done for them, but must also be seen to be done. And for justice to be seen to be done, the independence and impartiality of the judiciary must be guaranteed. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the second priority area of building trust is tackling corruption head-on. Corruption undermines public confidence, not only in African judiciaries, but also in governments. Corruption also fosters criminality and slows down efforts to eradicate poverty. It seems the famous joke about lawyers, which says a good lawyer is one who knows the judge and not the law, is still real. Some so-called good lawyers are just crafty, accessing judges, magistrates, court brokers, and court clerks, and influencing them in favor of their clients. In the end, corruption and negotiated justice erode people's trust in the judiciary. This must change. I believe the judiciary should be able to address this malady from within, and this dialogue should come up with solid and actionable recommendations to address this challenge. The third priority area with a great potential in building trust in African judiciaries is harnessing the use of ICT in court proceedings and other functions. I believe the judiciary may win the confidence of the people by increasing its transparency and accessibility. In this regard, the judiciary must expedite the use of technology in the preparation and filling of court documents, conducting hearings through video conferencing, and assessing of court documents. I believe this will increase transparency and build the confidence of the people in the judiciary. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, let me also say a word with respect to building trust in regional courts. When African Union member states decide to ratify and subject themselves to the jurisdiction of regional courts like the African Court on Human and People's Rights, they expect such courts to complement and not to subordinate national courts on the agreed mandated jurisdictions. The United Republic of Tanzania has subjected herself to the East African Court of Justice established under the Treaty of the Establishment of the East African Community, as well as the African Court of Human and People's Rights, as founded under the Protocol on the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The United Republic of Tanzania actively and passionately worked for the establishment of these courts, cognizant of the fact that Africa needs her own regional courts to provide African solutions to African problems and challenges. The United Republic of Tanzania continues to maintain a good working relation with both courts who have their headquarters in Arusha, Tanzania. Allow me at this juncture, to correct the wrong impression that is parlayed that the United Republic of Tanzania has withdrawn from the African Court of Human and People's Rights. That is not true at all. Tanzania instead has withdrawn from the declaration made under Article 34(6) of the Protocol on the African Charter for the establishment of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, which permits individuals and non-government organizations from directly accessing the court. Tanzania remains party to the protocol and is allied to the mandate and spirit of the court. Access to the court remains as stipulated under Article 5(1) of the Protocol for the establishment of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Tanzania's decision to withdraw from the declaration made under Article 34(6) of the Protocol establishing the African Court was arrived at after thorough consultations and considerations within the entire government system, respecting the sovereignty of the United Republic of Tanzania. It was not made out of political considerations or expediency. I'm also aware that some other African Union member states have withdrawn from the declaration. I believe they also have their reasons for doing so. In this regard, I wish to suggest that in order for the court to regain confidence of member states, it should strive to create an African human rights jurisprudence applicable to all of Africa, addressing African peculiar challenges. The court should also set realistic standards in consideration of the capacity of African states. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that trust is the cornerstone in the dispensation of justice. When justice is properly administered, it guarantees the stability and security for any society. Tanzania's founding president, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, once stated that, and I quote, "For the work of the judiciary is nothing less than maintenance of respect for law in this country. Judges are and must be nothing less than the buttress wall supporting the individual justice for which our people struggled when they fought for national independence. You do not control legislation, but your actions, together with those of the police, can make that legislation effective or meaningless. Unless your work is done properly, none of the objectives of our democratic society can be implemented." End of quote. I therefore call upon all participants in this dialogue to draw from your long experiences in the judiciary and deliberate on major bottlenecks that erode public trust in African judiciaries. I believe some of the bottlenecks may be dealt with within the judiciary. The government of the United Republic of Tanzania will spare no effort in contributing to building of this confidence, both at the national and international levels. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it would be remiss of me if I end my remarks without expressing profound gratitude on behalf of the government and the people of the United Republic of Tanzania to the African Union and the court's administration for its decision to have the seat of the court in Tanzania. I wish to reiterate the commitment of the government of the United Republic of Tanzania to continue undertaking its obligations under the host agreement and in strengthening the existing cooperation with the African Union. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my fervent hope that the outcome of this dialogue will provide guidelines and clarity on how to tackle obstacles related to building confidence in the justice systems in our continent. After these remarks, it is now my singular honor and pleasure to declare that the 5th African Union Judicial Dialogue is officially opened. I wish you fruitful deliberations. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Excellency. This officially marks the end of the opening ceremony. However, we have another short ceremony, which is becoming a tradition at the court, whereby the president hands over a gift to our guest of honor in appreciation for gracing the ceremony. So I'll call on our protocol colleagues to bring the gift that the president is to present to our guest of honor. Madam President, you have the floor. Where's the protocol? Okay. Thank you very much. Just one announcement, and I'll invite a protocol to advise on how the photos will be taken later. After the photo session, we are going to break for about 15 minutes. We have light refreshments. The refreshments will be on the second and third floor. Protocol and ushers will direct the distinguished delegates to these floors for the refreshment. We'll have refreshments for about 15 minutes, and we reconvene here at 11 o'clock to start with proceedings of the 5th Judicial Dialogue. Thank you very much. I wish to invite protocol to announce the photo session process.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, our guest of honor, Your Excellency, the President of the African Court. The photo is going to be in 4 phases. The first photo is going to be for the high table, and the photo is going to be right in the lobby as we exit the main hall. And the second photo is for the high table and the judges of the African Court, including the former judges of the African Court. The third photo is the high table plus heads of delegations and the deputies from African Union member states. And the last one is going to be for the high table plus all distinguished delegates attending this judicial dialogue. Your Excellency, our guest of honor, with your permission, we will commence with that photo of the high table right from here, and then others are going to join in this sequence that I have announced. Excellencies, thank you so much.
ዛሬ ቢያስርህ ይችላል እኮ አሁን ዛሬ እኮ ውጣ ብሎ ሰው ያለ ፍርድ ቤት ትዕዛዝ ማሰር መበርበር ይኸውልህ አዳም ይኸውልህ አሁን የአስቸኳይ ጊዜ ውስጥ ስለሆነ አሁን እነሱ በስተትም በምንም ቢያሱ ምንም ይችላሉ አንደርስታንዲንግ የላቸው ዘመን ላይ ያለው በየጊዜው ይቀያየራሉ። ገባኝ እሱ ይኸውልህ እዛ በር ላይ ያለው በር ላይ ያለው አንደርስታንዲንግ ብዙ ነገር አለ። አሁን ደግሞ በአስቸኳይ ጊዜ አዋጅ ላይ ደግሞ ከዚህ በላይ አንደርስታንዲንግ ያደርጉ ስለሚችሉ በጋብላችን ይህን ካንተ ጋር ራሳቸው ነግረው አሚካብሪ ለአህመድ ፎቶውን ስትል እኛ አልነገርናቸው እኛ እነሱን የማድረግ ስልጣን የለንም ታውቃለህ። ፎቶግራፍን ላክና ለሌላም ጊዜ ራሱ ይሄ ለበጎ ለጥሩ ነገር ውሰዱ። ሌላም ጊዜ መንገድ ላይ ራሱ እንዳያስሩ የሚጠቅም ነገር ስለሆነ ፎቶውን አሁን ለአህመድ ስጥና እኔ ጊዜያዊ አንተ ማስተዋል ያለብህ እሱ አሁን እነሱ በስፋት ሰው ሊያስቡ ይችላሉ። ወኔ ብዙ ነው። እናንተ ማድረጋችሁ ብዙ ይችላል። ውጭ ላይ ራሱ አሁን እኔ ትናንትና ሌሊት